Hi, I'm Mira Langston. Last year, my sister, the golden child of our family, waited exactly 1 day after being handed the reins of our company before firing me. No warning, no thank you for your service, just, your role has been dissolved. They all assumed I'd walk away quietly, but they overlooked one tiny clause buried in the original incorporation agreement. One clause I personally fought to include over a decade ago. And today, that little oversight is costing them everything. And the most ironic part? They still don't realize I'm the one who pulled the first thread. Before I take you deeper, what time are you listening and where are you tuning in from? Drop it below. It started like any other Thursday. I was 38, headed into our firm's headquarters in Chicago's West Loop, my heels clicking through the polished concrete halls I knew better than my own apartment. I expected a routine quarterly strategy review, nothing flashy. I greeted the front desk, passed security, and stepped into the glass-paneled conference room. That's when I saw them. Gold and ivory balloons shaped into an arch, lilies, my mother's signature flower, lined the table. Cupcakes and champagne sparkled near the wall, and a banner celebrating new leadership. My stomach dropped. Round the table, my parents, our CFO, legal counsel, the board. Some smiled. Others avoided my gaze. And then I saw Isla, my older sister. Hair slicked back, cream blazer tailored like armor, smirking like she'd won an Oscar. "Mira," my mother said, too brightly. "So glad you could make it." I stared, stunned. I had scheduled this meeting. Then my father stood. "Today begins a new chapter. We're proud to announce Isla as CEO, effective immediately." The room clapped, and I smiled, because they had no idea what was coming next. The room erupted in applause. I stood still, frozen somewhere between humiliation and disbelief. No one had told me. Not a whisper, not even a forwarded calendar invite. Across the room, Isla was glowing under the golden arch of celebration, soaking in the spotlight like it had always belonged to her. I didn't clap. Couldn't. My hands stayed at my sides as I locked eyes with her, searching for a flicker of remorse, an ounce of decency. Nothing. She turned away, already addressing the board. "I believe it's time to streamline leadership and reposition the firm for long-term innovation," she said smoothly, like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. I didn't even catch the rest. My ears buzzed. Alicia, our HR director, quietly approached with a folder in hand. I didn't need to look at it to know. My name was typed across the top, the word termination stamped like a wound. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at our parents. They couldn't meet my eyes. Isla walked toward me, her heels clicking like punctuation. She leaned in and whispered, "It's not personal, Mira. You've just outgrown your role." Outgrown? I had built this place. I co-signed the first lease. I missed my own engagement party to save the company from a supplier dispute. I skipped birthdays, holidays, even Grandpa's funeral, because someone had to show up. That someone had always been me. Now, apparently, I was outgrown. I took the folder, the boilerplate severance barely warm from the printer, and walked out as the applause began again. The hall seemed endless, my heels too loud, the silence too sharp. I caught Isla near the elevator. "You couldn't even call me privately?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "This is business, Mira. You always made it personal." When I swiped my badge to enter my office, the light turned red. Access denied. A young assistant I once mentored walked by with a box in her arms. My box. Labeled. Packed. My framed photo of Mom and me from our first product launch. My boss lady in progress mug. My walnut pen. The one Dad gave me when we signed the incorporation papers. It was all done, as if they'd planned this long before today. Outside the sun was too harsh. I sat in my car and gripped the steering wheel. I didn't cry, not yet. Chicago traffic blurred past the windows. I got home before noon. The kitchen was too quiet. The coffee machine blinked. 11:12 a.m.ing, same day, new reality. I unpacked the box. My fingers paused on the walnut pen, engraved with ML for Mira Langston. "You're the feature," Dad had told me. I sat at the table, clutching it. Then came the tears. Quick, gasping sobs I didn't expect. Not loud, just sharp and private. Then my phone buzzed, a headline. Langston Group, names first, female CEO, a legacy continues. Legacy? I was that legacy. I reached into the box for a tissue, and my hand brushed something tucked under the cardboard flap. A plain envelope, no markings, just my name in tidy script. It hadn't been in the box originally. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was thick, embossed paper, our law firm's letterhead. It wasn't severance paperwork. It was a notarized contract, dated 4 years ago. The night Isla had shown up at my place, sobbing that we'd miss payroll and lose our biggest client. I remembered the late-night drive to Evanston, the lawyer she trusted, the way I'd wired $250,000, 0 cents to keep the company alive. That document was my insurance. A 10% non-dilutable boarding share in Langston Group. Activated unless I signed a resignation. I never had. And how? I smiled through tears. Because they had no idea I still owned the table they were sitting at. A resignation I never gave. So no, they couldn't just toss me aside like some intern who misplaced a few reports. They knew. They had to know. The only reason they thought they could get away with it was if they assumed I'd forgotten, that I'd lost the paperwork, that I was still the same daughter who chose loyalty over leverage. They were counting on my silence. I ran my thumb over the notary seal, the signature at the bottom. Isla's, right next to mine, still curled in perfect black ink. My pulse calmed, because this wasn't just a corporate decision. This was a calculated erasure. They weren't pushing me out. They were rewriting the narrative, and I wasn't going to let them. I grabbed my keys and headed for the garage. The heavy door groaned open, letting in a rush of sticky, late spring air. Dust floated through streaks of sunlight as I pulled out box after box from the corner shelves. Years of tax returns, hard drives, a few bank statements and shipping receipts. Then I found it. A navy move folder labeled 2019, Isla Emergency. Inside, printed emails, transfer receipts, even a scanned copy of the wire confirmation. And taped to the inside cover, a flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop right there on the workbench. A single audio file. I clicked play. Isla's voice filled the garage, soft, shaken. "Mira, I don't know how to thank you. If I ever forget this..." I shouldn't be in charge of anything. I played it again. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just focused. Face. This wasn't heartbreak. This was war. I packed the file, the contract, and my laptop into a leather tote Dad gave me when we closed our first big deal. Then I left. I didn't want to sit in my kitchen feeling betrayed. I needed neutral ground, a space to think. I parked outside a quiet cafe nestled between a bookstore and a real estate office. Ordered a green tea. Picked a booth near the back. I opened my laptop and began gathering every breadcrumb I'd ever left behind. Marketing decks I'd edited. Payroll reports I'd personally approved. Investment memos with my annotations. Screenshots, folder structures, audio backups. The more I pulled, the less it felt like mourning, and more like building a case. They thought I'd fold. They thought I was still the version of Mira who apologized for taking up space. But I was done apologizing. Then my inbox pinged. Subject line: "I don't agree with what they did to you. We should talk. Clark." Clark Marino, our longtime accountant. Quiet, meticulous, invisible in the boardroom, But he saw everything. I replied without hesitating. An hour later, I was walking along a quiet stretch of Lincoln Avenue, dusk settling like ash between closed storefronts. His building was old, wedged between a fitness studio and a dry cleaner frozen in the 90s. Clerk opened the door after 2 knocks. Same slouched posture, same soft eyes. But tonight, he looked worn down, tense. "I'm glad you came," he said, leading me into a living room that smelled faintly of burnt coffee and laundry detergent. He gestured to a table stacked with USBs and folders. "They told me to delete everything," he said. "Board minutes, your voting rights, ownership records." My stomach twisted. "I was supposed to erase you." I stayed quiet, let the weight of it settle. Clerk opened his laptop and clicked a folder labeled "Not Forgotten." "They offered me a bonus if I kept quiet," he said. "Figured I'd stay quiet 'cause I'm just the accountant." He pressed play. Isa's voice. "She's never meant to last. She's emotional dead weight." I didn't blink, but I felt the heat rise in my throat. Next file. "My mother. Mira's family, but we need someone more polished, presentable. Reliable," she meant, "not someone who disappears." I didn't disappear. I was on unpaid leave, taking care of Blake, my partner, while he battled stage 2 lymphoma. I kept the books running remotely. I answered emails during chemo sessions, and they knew it. I didn't cry. Not because I finally had what I needed. And they had no idea what was coming next. The time for trust had passed. Instead, I asked Clark quietly, "Did they all sign off on it?" He nodded. "Your dad hesitated, but Isla and your mom pushed it hard. He didn't resist for long." I stood and began pacing, each step deliberate, my mind sharpening with every movement. "And the originals? You still have them?" He nodded. "Everything." I kept it all. Guilt, I guess, and fear. "I'm not here to punish you," I said. "I'm here to correct what they buried." He handed me the USBs with a shake of his head. "There's one more thing. The retreat. The one you skipped." A chill settled in my chest. That's when it started. They used your absence to paint you as disengaged. A memory surfaced. Me sitting in a hospital room, feeding broth to Blake, his skin pale from another failed round of chemo. I remembered silencing my phone, ignoring the messages about mandatory team building, while my colleagues posted matching selfies from a luxury spa in Lake Geneva. When I came back, no one said a word, but half my projects had been reassigned. No explanation, no welcome back, just fake smiles and closed doors. I looked at Clark. "You've done enough, thank you. I'll deny it if they come for me." "You won't have to," I said calmly. "I'm not going through the courts." Not yet. Back home, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen island, the same counter where I once signed loan forms to rescue this family. I connected my encrypted drive, copied over the files, and labeled the new folder Phoenix. Then I reopened my LinkedIn. It had been dormant for nearly 6 years. Another sacrifice to keep up the illusion of loyalty. Within minutes of reactivating it, the messages flooded in. But one made my heart stutter. "Hey, stranger, still got that spark? I may have a proposition." Lyle Parkson. Lyle had left our firm quietly years ago. No drama, just a quiet nod and a brief handshake. He was once the only person who saw me. Not Mira, the younger daughter, not the placeholder, but me. His message continued. "I always knew who actually brokered those vendor deals. Let's build something that's yours this time. Name on the door, full partner, come talk." 2 days later, I stood in front of a sleek glass building in River North, its mirrored windows flashing in the morning light. The lobby smelt like cedar, citrus, and espresso. Not like the dust and stale legacy I'd left behind. I caught my reflection in the chrome elevator doors. For the first time in weeks, I didn't look erased. I looked ready. Lyle greeted me with a hug that was warm but professional. "There she is," he said with a grin. "The ghost they tried to bury." He introduced me to his leadership team. People who met my eyes, asked real questions, and didn't pretend I was invisible. We sat in a bright conference room as he slid a folder across the table. Partner track. No waiting in line, but I know you've got unfinished business. We're not rushing you. When you're ready. That night, back home, I opened Clark's USB again. One file stopped me cold. Bridgegran, _terms_signed PPL. I remembered that deal vaguely. A rushed contract. I'd heard about it after it was already inked. Too late to review. I opened it, my heart pounded. There was my name, my signature. Only, I never signed it. I dug out an old notebook, one I'd used to write packing lists and scribbles. I compared the slant, the loops. It wasn't mine. It was Callista's. She forged it. My sister had signed my name without my consent. Sloppy, arrogant. She didn't even loop her lowercase g the way I do. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. My father once told me, business is built on trust. In this family, your word is your bond. I wonder what he'd say now. Knowing Callista bonded my name to a lie, I printed the document. The machine hummed softly as each page slid out, evidence in black and white. I placed it in an envelope, labeled it in neat script, to the Illinois Office of Business Conduct. And beneath that, confidential for immediate review. They wanted me gone. But I wasn't just coming back. I was coming back with the receipts. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about burning down the lie they'd built. Then, standing tall in the smoke, unflinching. I sealed the envelope, exhaled, and stood in the middle of my quiet apartment, letting the silence drape over me like armor. They want someone more presentable? I whispered. Let's see how she looks in front of investors. I sat down at my laptop, clicked open LinkedIn again, and hit REACAFT. The notifications poured in. Old colleagues, forgotten contacts, recruiters. But one ping stopped me cold. Lyle Parkson. Again. Not the professional tone this time, just, hey stranger. Still got that spark? Let's talk. A few hours later, at the Cook County Clerk's office, the woman behind the plexiglass barely looked up as she slid the notarized revocation order across the counter. All filed, she said, tapping the embossed seal. Effective immediately. I slipped the document into my leather folio. As I turned to leave, she asked quietly, "You sure this won't stir anything up?" I didn't even glance back. "Oh," I said, "I'm counting on it." By the time I stepped outside, the Chicago haze had burned off. Sunlight gleamed off windshields, puddles, even the cracks in the sidewalk. But something inside me had shifted. Quiet. Permanent. Back home, I kicked off my heels, made a strong black coffee, and opened my laptop. Buried in my desktop was a mess of folders. I clicked on one, mom_phone_sync_2019, half expecting it to be junk. But inside I found it, a 2-minute voice file, accidentally synced years ago when I was helping Mom set up her new iPhone. The date, 3 days before the vote that pushed me out. I hit play. Callista's voice, crisp on speaker. "Mira's smart, sure, but she's too loyal to fight me. That's why I'll win. Mom and Dad know it. She still thinks loyalty counts for something." The silence after hit harder than her words. There was no rage. Not yet, just a weight in my chest, like grief in slow motion. I hovered over the delete button, then stopped. Instead, I clicked save, dragged the file into a new folder, and labeled it contingency_exposure. Then I walked to the kitchen. Refilled my mug. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Back at the computer, I logged into the family trust system, a portal I still had access to, thanks to a forgotten clause they never revoked. I uploaded the revocation of power of attorney, stamped, signed, effective today. With one click, Callista's authority vanished. I smiled, not from vengeance, from clarity. Later that evening, I slipped on a charcoal blazer I hadn't worn in a year, Packed a slim tote with the essentials, my laptop, a thumb drive, the revocation and the voice recording, now burned to disk and labeled in red Sharpie. Before I zipped it shut, I opened my email one last time. Subject: use only if she forgets. To myself. Attachment: Callista_voicemail MP3. Send. Hour off. I passed by the hallway mirror on my way out. I didn't look erased anymore. I looked like a woman who remembered who she was. An hour later, I stepped out of my car at the charity gala Callista had orchestrated like a coronation. Her name was on the banners, the program, the donor wall. Langston Legacy, a night of impact. The valet blinked when he saw me. I wasn't on the guest list. It didn't matter. Inside, the ballroom sparkled under chandeliers. Guests in evening gowns and tuxedos sipped champagne, posed for photos, exchanged shallow praise. I moved through the crowd like smoke through velvet. A few heads turned. A couple recognized me. Most smiled with the hollow friendliness of corporate etiquette. But Callista? Callista froze when she saw me. Just for a second. Then she slipped into character. Graceful, polished, queen of the night. She took the mic and gave that smile I'd once admired. But I wasn't here to admire anymore. I was here to end the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Callista began, voice smooth as silk. We built Langston and Vale on legacy, on trust, on knowing when to lead and when to let go. Her gaze slid to me, just sharp enough to cut. Some of us understand that better than others. A polite ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. I didn't flinch. Instead, I raised my glass and met her eyes. The smile I gave wasn't warm. It was the kind that made people shift in their seats. The kind that said, "You missed something, and you'll realize it too late." I didn't stay for the applause. As I moved toward the coat check, I passed within feet of her. Her smile faltered. She didn't speak. But I could feel the tension pulsing under her skin. I knew exactly what she was doing backstage. Checking her phone, scrambling to transfer assets to secure control. Then it began. Her voice behind the curtain, clipped and rising in panic. "What do you mean, access denied? That account's under my authority." A pause. "What do you mean it's been revoked? Who signed off?" Moments later, she burst into the hallway, heels hitting the floor like gunshots. A board member approached, palms raised. "It's been updated, Callista. Legally. We were notified this morning." I didn't stick around to watch the meltdown. I already knew what it sounded like. Outside, the evening air was cool and crisp. I took my time walking to the parking lot, relishing the unfamiliar but welcome sensation of peace. But I wasn't surprised when I heard her voice behind me. "You think this is over?" she snapped. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I turned slowly, let the silence hang between us. Then I said, calmly, "Then I guess we both have something to regret." She stepped forward. "You really think you can win against me? I was chosen. You were convenient." Her voice cracked. Not from pain, from rage. I stepped aside, clearing the path back to her car. "You have a lovely night, Callista." Back home, the stillness met me like a friend. I slipped off my heels, changed into sweatpants, poured a glass of water. Then I noticed the door. It scratched, deep, like someone had tried to pry it open. My stomach dropped. I checked the mailbox in the lobby. The metal was bent. Security reviewed the footage. "We saw someone near your vehicle," the officer said. "But no plates, no face, no entry. Just enough to unsettle. Nothing stolen, nothing broken." As disturbed. Back upstairs, I sat in the dark, letting the silence rebuild my armor. Then I reached for my phone. Played the voicemail again. Callista, smug and amused. She won't fight back. She never does. That's why I always win. I let it play again. And again. Then I whispered, "Let's change that." 2 days later, I parked a block from the West Ridge Community Center, where Callista was presenting to the Neighborhood Development Board. Her white Mercedes was already there, of course. I double-checked my bag. The envelope was still there. Sealed, notarized, final. My fingers brushed it like habit. Inside, her voice carried across the hall before I even saw her. As acting trustee, she announced confidently, I've streamlined Phase 1 of the Langston Riverfront project. Efficiency is everything. Phase 1. Property tied to our family trust. My share included. I didn't rush. I walked down the side aisle slowly and placed the envelope in front of the board chair without a word. Heads turned. Callista turned too and froze. Then, in perfect performance mode, she smiled. Well, look who finally decided to show up. I said nothing, just sat in the back row. The chairman opened the envelope, scanned the contents, and passed it to a colleague. Whispers spread like spilled water. Then he cleared his throat. Before we move to item 4, we need to pause for legal review. This revocation notice affects the standing of recent asset decisions. Callista's smile tightened. Oh, come on, she said too quickly. This is last-minute theatrics. None of this is official. But her voice was a touch too loud, a little too high. And just like that, the room no longer belonged to her. Airman didn't budge. It's notarized, time-stamped. We'll pause all pending votes until legal counsel weighs in. For the first time in a long while, I saw Callista blink. Her eyes scanned the room like someone searching for backup that wasn't coming. I didn't wait around. I left before the murmurs started. As I passed the lobby, I heard someone whisper, I thought she was gone for good. I kept walking. That night, I met Trina at a cozy cafe on the north side, the kind with fairy lights and acoustic music. She was already there, tucked into a corner booth, coffee in one hand, tablet in the other. You were subtle, she said, but surgical. Surgical leaves a scar, I replied. She tapped her screen. It's ready. The transfers, the board vote, the signature you never gave. If you go public, it'll shake everything. I stared at my cup. I haven't decided. Trina met my gaze. You helped me once. I won't push. But I'll be ready when you are. I nodded slowly. People love a Phoenix story. They love the fire more. On the drive home, Fleetwood Mac came on. Landslide. Mom's favorite. I could hear her voice, light and tired, saying, Let her shine, Mira. It's her turn. It was never a turn, I whispered. It was a sentence. Back home, I opened the drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside was the original ledger, wrapped in faded floral fabric. Callista always said it was lost. I never corrected her. I pulled out my phone. Dialed Trina. I'm ready. That night, I reread every receipt, every scribbled note in my handwriting, evidence that I'd always been there, just behind the curtain. At 6:04 a.m., Trina texted. Live. The article hit fast. The silent founder. What really happened at Langston and Vale. It was direct, backed with documents, clear as crystal. Side-by-sides of my name on founding forms beside Callista's award photos, internal emails, graphics. It wasn't a story. It was a reckoning. By midday, my inbox was buzzing. Darius, a former intern, always thought something didn't add up. Elena, one of our first clients. You were always the quiet one, but I saw you. If you build again, I'm in. Then came the message I didn't expect. And R. McClory, Everglen Capital. Mira, let's talk next steps. I was pouring coffee when the phone rang. I didn't need to look. Callista. You vindictive witch, she screamed. You think they'll see you as a victim? You're pathetic. I built this. I said nothing. I just tapped end. By afternoon, a cease and desist hit my inbox. Her lawyer accused me of defamation. Attached were files to prove her exclusive leadership. But one stopped me cold. A 2019 report, the Bridge Grant proposal, her key piece of evidence. And on page 6, the falsified ledger. The same one she used to cut me out. The one she claimed I signed. Only now, she'd submitted it in a legal filing. She had no idea I still had the original. That evening, I met Mr. Lange, my attorney, in his small office above a florist on Belmont. He flipped through the documents, then looked at me over his glasses. "She just gave us everything," he said. I nodded. She always believed she was untouchable. Not anymore. For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt real. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I'd be undeniable. He didn't waste time. "I take it this is urgent?" Mr. Lang asked, closing the office door behind me. I handed him the fabric-wrapped ledger. Faded floral, familiar in my hands. "This is the original," I said. "She lied again. On record, this time." He unwrapped it, flipped through the pages, and let out a quiet whistle. "Well, this just turned into perjury." His eyes sharpened. "We're not playing defense anymore." By nightfall, Trina's story had hit national news syndication. Not front page, but loud enough to shake trees, and shake them it did. Later, I drove through the old business park off I-90, where it all began. Most offices were dark, but one still glowed. My old suite. Now rented by an architect who admired what Langston and Vale used to be. He let me in. The desk was gone, but the old pine chair Dad had made still sat in the corner. Low bump, sanded smooth, initials ML carved into the slab. I ran my hand along it. For years I felt like a guest in my own legacy. But tonight, I didn't feel like a placeholder. I felt like the author. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from fear, but readiness. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the courtroom, shoulders squared, breath steady. Inside, Kalisa sat at the opposite table, draped in control, trying to look unbothered. Her lawyer looked pale, flipping documents too late. The judge began. "We've reviewed the financial documents submitted by the plaintiff. There are inconsistencies between Ms. Callista Langston's version and the original ledger." He paused, looked directly at her. "Submitting forged records is not an oversight. It's a criminal offense." No gasps, just silence. Callista stared forward, unblinking, like the words didn't register. Her lawyer whispered, desperate. She didn't move. The judge continued. "This court refers the matter for criminal review under Penal Code 115. In addition, financial restitution will be paid to the defendant." It was done. Outside, reporters waited. Cameras clicked. Questions flew. I didn't answer any. I walked past them, shoulders high, calm. The story spoke for itself. That afternoon, I met Trina at a coffee shop near her office. We sat near the window, ceramic mugs warm in our hands. She stirred her drink. "Do you regret any of it?" I thought about it. Not the trial. Not Callista. I thought about hospital nights, press releases with my name left off, and holidays I worked through while she got applause. "I regret thinking I needed their permission to matter," I said. Trina didn't respond right away. Just nodded, slow, knowing. That evening, I returned to the studio, a co-working space I helped launch with 2 other women, both forced out of their companies. One by her husband, one by a board who said she didn't look global enough. No receptionist, no marble floors, just real plants, repurposed desks, hard wood beneath our feet. My corner was simple, a corkboard, a laptop, a window facing east. Aaron the chair. Dad's chair, cleaned, polished. I'd fastened a small plaque on the back. To the one who stayed silent, then spoke the loudest. I didn't cry. I just sat, let it settle. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming. As I looked out at the street, life passing by in quiet pursuit of dreams, I felt something rare. A stillness. Not silence, not submission, just stillness. That night I emailed Trina. "If they reach out again, tell them I've said all I needed to." Then I recorded a voice note, something to return to if I ever forgot. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It arrives quietly. In a courtroom, an old chair, or a new beginning. I leaned back, let it echo. And I whispered, not needing an answer. Have you ever had to walk away from the very thing you built just to save yourself? If my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment, not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told they didn't belong at the table they helped build. Your voice matters. Share your thoughts, your encouragement, or your own story of reclaiming power. Every comment reminds me that silence isn't strength, truth is. And if you're facing something similar, here's my advice. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let someone else's spotlight convince you you're standing in the dark. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak.